Chapter 23. The days that followed were among the most torturous Kath had ever known. It became habit to check her window for white roses and peer into the tree boughs for black ravens, but there was no sign of Geste or his companion. Geste did not try to steal her away for another midnight rendezvous, nor did he come to her door and ask to speak to her father and make a case for why he should be allowed to court her. Which was of course a good thing, practically speaking. And yet she couldn't stopper the fantasies of him doing just that, and her father somehow, miraculously, impossibly, agreeing to it. The king's courtship, on the other hand, had begun in earnest, and the courtship meant constant nagging from her mother. Why hadn't His Majesty invited Catherine to another gathering? Why wasn't Catherine doing more to put herself in his path? When was he going to propose? What flowers should they choose for the bridal bouquet? On and on and on. "Another delivery for Lady Catherine," said Mr. Penguin. Their butler was dwarfed by a humongous flower arrangement, with only his webbed feet and black coat tail visible beneath. Kath sighed and set down the book she'd been reading. A week ago, she would have looked at the flowers with hope. Were they from Geste? Was he thinking about her half as much as she was thinking about him? But the gifts never were from Geste, and one look at the bouquet of red roses, red carnations, and red dahlias confirmed that this was another gift from her doting suitor. Their courtship thus far had been undemanding, though mostly because Kath was avoiding him. She had dismissed a number of requests for chaperoned walks through the palace gardens, trip to the opera, and invitations to tea. As far as the king knew, she had been afflicted with a week-long headache, and she was hoping he would soon deem her too sickly to pursue further. Her beau, as her mother called him, had made up for their lack of companionship through a constant stream of gifts. Each one filled Catherine with dread, knowing the king could not have bestowed such generosity on anyone less grateful. Her mother, on the other hand, was delighted with each delivery. She received cakes and pies and tarts from the palace pastry chefs, and Kath did her best not to be too critical of them, on the rare occasions when her mother actually let her sample the desserts at all. She received diamond earrings and ruby brooches, and golden pendants, all decorated with the crown's signature hearts, as if the king's intentions weren't obvious enough. She received fine silk gloves and music boxes, and even a curled lock of prickly white hair tied with a red velvet ribbon. That particularly appealing gift had even come with a poem. "Roses are red, violets are blue. I would even trim my mustache for you." She had memorized the short stanza against her will, and the words had nauseated her on multiple occasions since. Worst of all were the gifts beneath which she could envision Geste's involvement, the occasional poem that warmed her soul, the letters that touched her on a deeper level, the words that she could imagine uttered in Geste's voice, perhaps even penned by his hand, yet always, at their end, signed by the king. She knew the king was seeking Geste's advice on this courtship, and each of these cards was a needle in her heart. She found herself poring over those words, imagining Geste crafting them with her in mind, and pretended that he meant every word. A painful, bittersweet reality. Geste was wooing her, but only in the name of the king. "Our house is beginning to smell like a florist," she muttered, taking the linen card out of the newest bouquet. "Would you like me to put it with the others, Lady Catherine?" "Please, thank you, Mr. Penguin." The butler left, taking the flower arrangement down to her mother's sitting room. but the only person who appreciated the bouquet could admire it. Breaking the wax seal, Kath unfolded the letter. She kept hoping with each new delivery that this would be the letter in which the king would apologize and confess their courtship was not up to expectations, and he was forced to end their arrangement. She should not have allowed such optimism. At least, it wasn't one of the letters that made her tremble, lifting off the page in Jess's voice. This one was entirely His Majesty. To my dearest, darlingest sweetling, your eyes are like ripe green apples sprinkled with cinnamon. Your skin shimmers like buttercream frosting. Your lips are a ripe raspberry. Your hair is dark chocolate melted on the castle drawbridge on a very hot day. You smell better than a loaf of fresh bread in the morning. You're more beautiful than a birthday cake. You're sweeter than vanilla and honey mixed together, with sugar on top. Yours most ardently, with all my gushingest, ooziest admiration. The king's signature and postscripts were in a different penmanship. This had been the case with most of the cards he'd sent. She pictured Jest, quill in his hand as the king dictated the letter, flinching from the overwrought prose, politely biting his tongue. The King of Hearts, not that there are any other kings around, especially kings that call you their sweetling. At least, I hope not. Tehehe. P.S. Can I have some more tarts? Gagging, Kath tumbled onto the divan and slid the letter into the pages of her book, hoping it would be forgotten there ever after, when a second note fell from the envelope's folds. A piece of white parchment printed with a red heart. It reminded her of the slip of confetti she'd caught in the ballroom, what seemed like ages ago. Her heart skipped when she turned it over. The note was written in the same flourishing penmanship as the king's letter. Dear Lady Pinkerton, let us fault His Majesty not for his good intentions, but only for his inability to put such longing into words. For certain, your charm would turn even the most articulate of men into bumbling fools. I will beg you to think kindly on our wretched attempts to flatter one whose praises could only be spelled out in the poetry of ocean waves and the song of distant thunder. Yours, a most humble joker. P.S. Can I have some more macarons? Kath laughed, her cheeks warming. She slipped the note back into the envelope and shut the book, hiding both letters between its pages. You aren't going to respond to your sovereign? She startled, but it was only Cheshire, lounging on the windowsill overhead. She released a slow breath. Must you always sneak up on me like that? Don't flatter yourself, Lady Catherine. I sneak up on everyone like that. Lifting a back leg, Cheshire began to clean himself in an inappropriate cat-like manner. Catherine rolled her eyes and settled into the divan again, shuffling the book's pages to try and find her spot. No, I do not intend to respond to my surrender's letter. I am trying not to encourage his attentions as much as can be helped. Has that proved to be an effective technique? Not terribly, but I am determined. It seems that so is he. What are you reading? His exuberant smile appeared above Catherine's knee, and his stripped tail flicked out, lifting the book so he could see the cover. She snarled at him, but he pretended not to notice. Gullible's Travels. Never heard of it. Kath snapped the book shut. The cat barely got his tail out in time. Are you here for a reason, Cheshire? Why, yes. I would enjoy a cup of tea. I take mine with lots of cream and no tea. Thank you. With another sigh, Kath set down the book and headed to the kitchen. Cheshire was there waiting for her when she arrived and started to purr when she pulled a bottle of cream from the icebox. "How's the royal courtship progressing?"
"This is the extent of it. He sends me gifts. I give them to my mother."
"How romantic." Cheshire lifted the saucer in both paws and downed the cream in a single swallow. Catherine leaned against the counter and waited for Cheshire to finish licking his lips.
"I have no need of romance," she said before adding quieter, "at least not from the king."
"Yes, I have heard that you may have other prospects, though I would not have expected you to be thus charmed." She stiffened.
"What do you mean?"
"I had a delightful spot of milk with Hayard yesterday. He's a hare, and mad as March. But he did recall a lovely girl in attendance at the Hatter's most recent tea party. A guest of none other than the court joker. Would you believe she had with her the most delectable macarons he had ever enjoyed? Now, who, pray tell, could he have been referring to?" For a heartbeat, Kath thought to deny everything, but Cheshire was not the sort worth denying. Gossipmonger though he might be, he was also dedicated to be obtaining reliable sources for his rumor mill.
"You won't tell anyone, will you?"
Cheshire dug a claw in between his front teeth, as if worried he might have some cream stuck there. "Who would I tell?"
"Everyone! You would tell everyone, but I'm asking you not to. Please, Cheshire, my parents
would be devastated, and the king too. The joker would likely lose his employment and your reputation, along with any hopes you have for a proper match would be ruined."
"I don't care about my reputation, but I don't want to hurt my parents, or the king, or Jess."
"You should care about your reputation. You know how people are. No matter how tasty your desserts, none of our lords or ladies would design to shop at a bakery run by a fallen woman." She shrank away.
"Cheshire, please."
"Don't give me those puppy dog eyes. You know how I despise puppy dogs. I won't tell anyone, though I can't make promises for the rest of the party guests. I only came to make sure you were unscathed." She shuddered.
"Hayard must have told you about the Jabberwock then."
"Yes, my dear, and the brave sacrifice of the lion, that most noble of felines." Kath shut her eyes against the sorrow that hit her every time she remembered the lion's final moments. His defiant roar, his golden body braced between her and the monster.
"The Jabberwock must be stopped," she said. "First the courtiers, and now this. Surely the king is doing something."
"Oh yes, the king is quite busy these days, penning love letters and such." She let out a frustrated noise.
"These attacks are not going to stop on their own. Isn't there anything we can do?"
"I don't care for the royal we, but I'll advise you to avoid any more late-night excursions. Though the loss of the lion is tragic, I did not know him personally. Whereas you, Lady Catherine, I might actually feel compelled to miss."
"That's sweet, Cheshire. I promise to be more careful. No more tea parties," she gulped, "and no more jokers. At least, not until I've come to a decision with the king."
Cheshire stared at her with his slitted eyes and too many teeth.
"What?"
"You really are taken with him, aren't you?"
"I'm sure I don't know what you mean. I'm already in a courtship, you know."
"But is the king the one you wish to be courting?"
"It doesn't seem to matter what I wish."
She returned the cream to the icebox.
"Not who I wish to be courting. Not what I wish for my future to hold."
"You have the chance to be a queen, Catherine. What else is there?"
"Oh, Cheshire, not you too. I don't want to be a queen of hearts. I don't understand how I'm the only one who doesn't see the appeal of it.
But if you were the queen, perhaps you could have your cake and eat it too. She cocked her head.
What's the point of having cake if you can't eat it?
I'm only saying that you might be the king's wife, but who is to say you couldn't also have more clandestine relations with the Joker? Her jaw fell open, and she stormed across the kitchen in a blink.
You naughty feline! How dare you suggest such a thing?
She swapped at the cat, but he disappeared, and her hand met only air. Her face was strawberry red when she spun around and saw Cheshire floating above the pan rack. Calm yourself, dear. It was only a suggestion. He punctuated the statement with a yawn.
It was a crude one, and I won't tolerate such an insult again.
She fisted her hands on her hips.
If I am to be a wife, I will be an honest one.
She cast her eyes toward the ceiling.
And you misunderstand me entirely, Cheshire. My opposition to the king is not only because I'm maybe, as you say, just a bit taken with the Joker.
Obviously.
I'll beg you to not repeat it, she scowled. My opposition is because queens do not start bakeries, and that is what I wish. But you know, I have always wished.
Oh, yes, the infamous bakery, the most wondrous bakery in all of Hearts. Cheshire's whiskers twitched. The one that, if I'm not mistaken, is no closer to reality now than it was when you first started talking about it. How many years ago? She clenched her jaw.
It is closer to reality. We are closer every day.
The Marquess has given his blessing then? She turned away, the blush still burning her cheeks, and carried Cheshire's empty saucer to the pile of dishes left from the morning's breakfast.
He will,
she insisted, her back to the cat.
Once I ask him.
Keep telling yourself that. You might soon start to believe it. Frowning, she rubbed her hands on a dishcloth. By the by, I have another piece of news I thought would interest you and the maid of yours. She faced Cheshire again. He had begun to vanish, leaving his bulbous head floating over the pots. A moment later, one disconnected paw appeared in front of the cat's face with a sharp claw punctured through a piece of weathered parchment, a poster. She snagged the paper away and smoothed it on the baker's table. She sniffed.
Believe it or not, Cheshire, I was already aware of the upcoming Turtle Days festival.
But have you seen the schedule of events? She scanned the list, from the dreaded lobster quadrille to a battledore tournament to 8-legged races to... She gasped.
A baking contest?
The first annual. Cheshire's paw vanished again to, Kath guessed, reconnect with the rest of his invisible body. Please tell me you'll make a tuna tart for the contest. Please, please, please.
Do you know what the prizes are?
First place wins a blue ribbon.
Is that all?
Is that all? Ribbons are lovely, you know. Not quite as nice as a ball of yarn, but nothing to snub. She gnawed at her lower lip. Oh, I suppose there was something about a purse. 20 gold crowns, if I'm not mistaken.
20?
Her heart sped up. With 20 gold crowns in her possession, she wouldn't have to sell her dowry. She wouldn't need a loan or permission from her parents. The recognition alone would be worthwhile. A big blue ribbon hanging in the bakery's front window, and a plaque. Grand winner of the first annual Turtle Days Bake-Off. I, for one, am devastated that I wasn't invited to be a judge.
Maybe if you didn't keep requesting tuna tarts.
She folded the poster and tugged it into her dress pocket.
I wonder what I'll make. Maybe an apple pie, or a berry truffle, or... Oh, I know! I'll make something with pumpkin. They're so trendy these days, and just the right season for it.
She tapped a finger against her lip.
Who are the judges?
Let me think. Jack was one, I seem to recall.
Ah, not the knave. He hates me.
Cheshire's eyes widened. Are you sure?
He tells me every time he sees me.
The cat made a vague noise in his throat, and Kath wondered how he could, having no throat at the moment. If you say so. Also judging are the Duke of Tuscany and that shoemaker, Mr. Caterpillar.
That old curmudgeon? It's amazing he can taste anything the way he smokes that hookah all the time.
Be that as it may. Who else? Oh, a representative of the turtles, of course. Some friend of Hare's and the griffin. You may have met him at the party.
I did. Sweet young turtle. I quite liked him, and he was fond of my macarons.
And the last judge, in a lucky twist, is already one of your biggest fans.
Oh?
In fact, he may be your biggest fan. Well, he may actually be one of your smallest fans, but let us not hold that against his superior judgment skills. Her enthusiasm began to wilt.
No.
Yes. Kath wilted. Of course it would be the king. Of course it would be the one person she was most determined to avoid.